is one of our original fermented beverages. All, even pre-Revolutionary War, Americans knew cider and cider apples and were well acquainted with the wine that you can produce with apples. The real question is, why are we only rediscovering it now in the last few decades? Why did Americans forget in the first place? There are a lot of answers. One of the worst answers is prohibition, right? So where Western Europeans never had this break in their tradition, you can go to Western Europe. In the case of Spain, they have like an unbroken 1,000-year tradition, and pretty close to that in France and England, and they have all their own cider apples and production techniques, and it's treated a lot like a national tradition because it is, and it was ours too. The amazing thing is that it is having this life after death experience, or this rebirth.
Let's use rebirth. We're not big on talking about the dead.
Somewhat spontaneously reappeared in this country. We kind of view ourselves as part of that renaissance, and we were as spontaneous as it gets. There was no plan, but once we discovered this is a real authentic thing that's amazing, people just don't know about it, like we got super psyched, and there's these islands of interest all over the country. They're just all popping up at once, and I don't know why all at once. I think there's a lot of authenticity, meaning once, like me I was really into wine. Once you try a really good authentic cider that's everything you thought it wasn't supposed to be, like your mind is saying Angry Orchard, and then your taste buds are like, oh my God, this is
I couldn't agree
wine.
More right now as a wine guy.
It's like this revelation. It scrambles your brain. So the first time I tried a really good cider, I was like, oh wow, this is something I didn't even know existed. And it's kind of like usually lower ABV wine, so it's got all the drinkability that I want of a lower alcohol beverage, but it totally does what I want a wine to do.
Get you there.
It's fruity and refreshing in the way, but like sometimes I don't want a beer, especially on a hot day at a barbecue, and this is different.
So obviously your first cider
that
you tried was strong, but probably. I'm joking. That's like
I'm sure.
Magners.
No, I'm sure. I used to hate cider, hate it. So So the first time, I'm sure it was woodchuck or something, and then I had like a sip. I was like, oh, that's gross, and then I didn't try it again for a decade. And then I tried it again. And I was like, oh, that's still nasty, and then I didn't try it again for 5 years, and it was like some of our friends started to get into cider, and we were just. I don't know.
We found some local cider producers, and so it was a little bit of a different kind of take on things, and they're like, try this, because they were really into paleo at the time, so we started drinking with them, and so like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I didn't say that. I just said
bread is awesome. We're very pro bread.
Bread is awesome.
We're very pro bread here.
But so we were drinking cider with them, and it was like local stuff, and we're like, this is super interesting. And then we started seeking out something different and new and more refined or whatever.
And to be honest, that once I knew the category existed, I would go straight to like the tiny section in the liquor store where it was at, and then I'd go straight to the top shelf and I'd go try all of them, right? And then I found there were bottle shops like Joy Wine and Spirits is a great example, where they had like this really good cider section. I'd come in and I'd start plucking off bottles, and
I love those people. Thank you for giving a shout.
Yes.
Small people. We like to support our local, smaller liquor stores. Like, I mean, even Argonauts and Molly's, but like, fuck people that buy that from King Seepers. Sorry. Get that out there. I like to publish
and a lot of these little retail locations, and frankly, all of our restaurant accounts, they're awesome ambassadors for our brands. So at a lot of bigger locations, nobody's going to come tell our story, but Enjoy Wine and Spirits, they're very likely to hear all about what we do. And so we love our small, local, especially to begin with, accounts, but independent. I mean, ultimately, the one or two location businesses are the ones that really know what's on their shelves.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I was thinking, I wanted to hear like, oh my God, I hated my day job, I quit, and we took a big leap on this. But like,
we did.
We still have our day jobs.
You still have your
really?
day jobs?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That gives. I mean, y'all followed we do as well, but following your passion and then making something of it, and then if you can make it profitable, that's even cooler.
Well,
teach me that.
But you used to work on Wall Street, didn't you?
I did. I did.
What's your social security number? I mean, Chris seems to have all of this information.
He's got all the answers.
Sorry.
Being able to being able to keep the lights on when you're starting a business like this helps a lot, especially if you have standards. And we have a whole lot of standards that we're trying to hold to. So, I mean, we buy our fruit from farmers we know personally. We've known them for years. We hand select the fruit at the orchard in person. These are small family farms that don't sell to grocery stores at all. They market nearly all their fruit in person at the farmer's market. We have all sorts of things that we're never going to change. Like, we're never going to add flavorings or use extracts. There's no gimmick. There's no bullshit. We press our own apples. It's apples and yeast and nothing else, and winemaking. And this is a winery. We just do it with apples. And you don't start a winery and
quit your job.
And set, and start making a profit on month 2, right? If we're lucky, maybe year 2 or 3. And so burning the candle from both ends is what we're doing, but it gives us the ability right now to do this or start this in the way that we really want. So it's hard as hell to do both at once, but they're both family businesses. So my other job I do with my father. We're investment advisors and manage people's retirement accounts and stuff like that. So I have backup in that part of my life, and then I do this with my wife. And so in my own personal case, I have a lot of backup, and we're scaling back Talia's hours, but she's still taking clients.
So I've got $10 to my name. So will you give me investment advice, or am I too low?
Save more money.
Okay. Solid. I'll try to keep that in mind. So it's funny when you talk, like, you're saying we press our own apples, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, when you're making cider, what do you mean by like is it the whole apple? You just...
We literally get bushels of apples from the growers in season, and we grind them up and press them and get the juice, and that's what we make our cider.
So just like you would do with a grape, with all the same equipment, with one extra step. The apple is hard, unlike a grape, so first you have to grind it up, basically a coarse applesauce before you press it, which is logistically challenging when you're processing tons of apples, but that's really the only difference. But we're using a wine press from Italy that would otherwise be used to press grapes.
So do you
would you say, I got a better question than whatever you're going to ask. Michael, so would you say that George Washington was your favorite president? Thank you.
Oh my Lord! I don't have a favorite president. I don't have it.
He was an Apple guy.
So yes,
the Apple we have a lot of problems with old TJ. He's
right. So
he saved a lot of really amazing fruit and vegetables.
Look at that history lesson. I didn't know that.
So I'll say this: early founding fathers really loved cider and really loved cider apples. George Washington was a cider maker, an apple brandy maker. Thomas Jefferson was a cider maker, but Thomas Jefferson was a prolific gardener and kept meticulous notes about everything he did. So in nearly any kind of heirloom gardening you can imagine, like we're talking like melons, all sorts of fruit.
TJ had a lesson in it?
There's stuff that he grew at Monticello, and because Monticello kept running, and it still is, they're still growing a lot of those heirlooms today. So for all of his failings, he was an accomplished fruit grower and cider maker and gardener and all sorts of stuff. But one of the coolest things is he dates apples to before the founding of the country, right? So if TJ liked an apple and was talking about it around the time of the Revolutionary War, that means the apple's older than the Revolutionary War. So one of the cool things that founding fathers...
Technically, that's a British apple.
No, it's an American. It's an American.
It's a true Native
Yeah. So like they planted the seed.
My people.
They planted the seed as soon as people arrived. And it was, so apples are weird. When you plant an apple seed, you don't get the original tree at all. You get a brand new tree that never existed on Earth before.
Nice.
And it's just like humans. When they have offspring, they're similar, but they're just different enough to be one of a kind and unique, and sometimes very different. And so the earliest seeds that were planted in the United States were the earliest American heirlooms, and they date to before the Revolutionary War. So one of the cool things about these apples, and that's why a lot of the apples that, for example, like Slow Food Nations highlights and showcases, they have a lot of historical authenticity, and they usually come prepackaged with a cool story. So whatever you think about the person who's growing the apple, it gives it a whole lot of depth and layers of meaning when you can say this is a very American thing. So American, it's older than we are.
Safe to say you're a TJ guy. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. We're George because Martha used to have a fat bowl waiting for him when he used to come in from the field. And they would roast it. Yeah. I mean, we like to quote Dazed and Confused a lot. And Forrest Gump, Step Brothers, Top Gun.
Nice.
Any of those. So if you have any good movie quotes at any time you want to throw in there, don't be shy.
If they play.
Yeah, but okay, President Team TJ. I like it.
Team TJ's Gardens.
Yeah.
So,
Team TJ.
So with apples, like you're saying, they all kind of take on different. I mean, can you basically like take any apple you want and make a cider?
You can. You shouldn't, though.
You should.
No.
Like you don't want to take like a Granny Smith apple.
No, that might be last on my list.
Okay.
Rank your top 3 favorite. I'm just kidding. You don't.
All of the things that people care about when fermenting grapes is relevant to apples. So the things that I think about, my macro concerns are aroma, flavor, sugar content, tannin content, and acidity. Those are like really big picture things. But like I said, every apple seed is a brand new apple with the organism has an infinite amount of dynamism and biodiversity in it. So literally, this is endless. Just like you would never run out of the flavors or aromas you could evoke from winemaking out of grapes. Apples, there are thousands of named varieties in the United States. Every Western European country probably has hundreds or 1,000 or more. They're all over the world, and it creates new versions of itself instantaneously. So cider making should be, I'll never get bored doing this. Not ever.
It seems like that, and you may be a reader. That verbiage that you just went on right there, we're going to have to spell like 11 of those words. Also, I just posted a picture on our Instagram, and it turns out y'all are neighbors with our friends from Sphere X.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that like, and he goes, dude, you're right fucking next door.
Yep.
And, yeah. What's it called? So shout out to Nicolo and the guys over there at Sphere X. We love y'all's pods. We smoke them a lot.
One of the things that everybody knows.
In fact, right now.
Maybe I'll say this over there.
I'm killing this one, whatever we're sipping on now. The Manchurian Candidate. Love it. Love it.
So, everybody knows that grapes produce pigment. They can make rosés and red wines, etc. And apples do the same thing. It's just poorly known. So there are some apples that are red on the inside. So their flesh is red, not white. Their juice is red.
Never seen one of those.
Looks like beet.
Quit being so racist, Chris.
Looks like beet juice. And it can make kind of a lighter kind of pink, rusty rosé. This is an apple called the Redfield apple, grown at a tiny farm in Hygiene, Colorado. That's in Boulder County. Rosé ciders tend to taste the way they look. They have kind of berry, pink flavor characters here, strawberries, raspberries, etc. But this one has a fair amount of tannin also, a nice, really, really soft tannin. So it kind of lives in a world in between a rosé and maybe like Pacific Northwest Pinot Noir in terms of body. So for a wine drinker, I think this will kind of scramble your brains in the way that you want it to.
Perfect. There's nothing better than I love than a scrambled brain.
So for instance, I've never seen an apple with a red inside. So are there certain apples that are just grown like for cider production?
Yes.
Kind of thing? Okay.
So as a New Yorker, Miss Talia, was one of your hobbies growing up apple picking like the rest of the cliche Americans in the Northeast?
No, we moved around a lot, so more Neiman Marcus and
yes. I know that. I used to pick in a part of that place.
Yeah, she's from Manhattan.
And then down in Florida, it turned into jean shorts.
Yeah. Cargos and flip flops. The occasional Croc.
Quite a cultural, change for me going to Florida. No, we didn't. Then we lived in Florida, so it was all orange picking. But it's not the same.
But I mean, the gardening and then like the cidering. So you've turned your hobby into a passion, and the passion into a project.
Yeah.
And then hopefully one day you could, send your kids to technical school I'm not pro college anymore. I'm pro go do. I mean, I got a degree in God knows what, and they should have taught me other things. But here we are. Y'all, I mean, I bet y'all made a lot of poor decisions.
I have an undergraduate degree in theater and dance.
Oh, there you go.